In this lesson, we're going to get started by setting up the logo and our background. Before we get started, I'd just like to let you know that Digital Tutors would like to say thank you to iStockPhoto and the artist Forest Bro for their images that were used in this series of lessons. You can access these same images and thousands of others at www.istockphoto.com. Okay, so I've already come in here into your 02_begin project file and just set up a main composition for us. So we're going to be working with just a few settings that I've already created for us. We're going to be working at 1280 by 720 with a frame rate of 24 frames per second, and our duration is only going to be 10 seconds, but a lot is going to get packed into those 10 seconds, so get ready. Okay, so let's go ahead and import the assets that we need. I'm going to come over here to my project panel, right click, go to import file. And I've got a few things in here in your referenced files folder inside of your project files. So let's just get started with that mantra logo. Now it says layers large because I've gone in and taken the mantra logo that was created in one of our Illustrator courses and just made it a little bit bigger, and I've also split every path in that onto its own layer inside of Illustrator. Now I show you how to do this step in several of my courses. You could watch the Telling a Story with Typography course and lots of others. So I'm not going to go through that step in this course of how to break those layers up in Illustrator. I'm just going to go ahead, we'll select that Illustrator logo, and then we're going to come down here where it says import as footage and go to composition, retain layer sizes. Now that's important that we choose that and not just composition, because now we're going to have all of those layers. Whenever you will be selecting those layers, they're going to only have a bounding box the size of that layer and not the whole size of the composition. So that's going to make it easier to handle the different layers that we'll be clicking on. So make sure you choose that option. Go ahead and hit open. And it's going to take just a moment. And that looks like that all came in nicely. So we've got the composition and then also all of the layers that that logo contains. So now we're going to have individual animation control over every single one of those pieces. Okay, let's keep importing. I'm just going to come back over here, hit import file, and we need to import all of these Photoshop documents. So I'm just going to control click all of those, and those are just imported as footage. So you can go ahead and open that up. And then we're going to bring in those other two pieces as well. So go to import file. We're going to bring in this fire PNG sequence. So you just select that first one, and you want to make sure that PNG sequence is checked. Now I have these as a PNG sequence instead of a movie file just because it takes up less room in your project files as far as file size goes. So go ahead and choose that PNG sequence, hit open, and it's going to go ahead and import that for you. Now we do need to take a second to interpret that footage. So right click that, go to interpret footage main, and it always is going to default this to 30 if you haven't changed what that default frame rate is for sequences like this. You can change it in your preferences, but if you haven't, it's going to go to 30. So I know that this one was 25 originally, so I'm going to just go ahead and plug that in. I'll go ahead and say okay to that. Then let's right click, go to import file, go up one, and then we're going to go into this water alpha and choose ink water. Make sure that also has PNG sequence. Open that up. And this one was a little bit different frame rate. So it was 29.97. There you go. So type that in, go ahead and say okay. And perfect. Okay, so now we have all the different pieces that we're going to be needing. Let's get a little bit more organized over here. I'm just going to right click. We'll go to new folder and we'll call this one graphics. And I'm just going to control click all of the pieces that would be considered graphic. So all those Photoshop documents and also the mantra layers that are in that folder. So we'll take all of those and drop those in our graphics folder. We also want a folder for video. So go new folder, video, and we'll put both our PNG sequences in that. And then we want another new folder for comps. And we'll take our main comp and that mantra comp and drop that inside of there. Okay, so now we're just a little bit better organized. And I just want to take a little more time now to create kind of a background color and then a basically a vignette that's going to be in the foreground kind of on top of everything else. And then our whole project is basically going to be built between those two layers. So let's go ahead and create our background layer first. Now I want to base my background color on my logo. So I'm going to go ahead and just grab my comps here. We'll grab that mantra logo and just drop it onto our main composition. And you can see kind of what that looks like there. And we can base it on this kind of darker bluish green color we have here. So we're going to just create a solid that's going to be pretty close to black, but have just sort of this greenish tint to it. So let's come up here, go to layer, new, solid. I'm just going to color pick to get me started from that dark green. Then we'll double click it and let's bring it down here just into those really, really dark values. Now I was playing earlier, just kind of playing around with some of these values, and this A0B actually looked really nice. So I'm going to go ahead and stick with that one. Go ahead and say okay. And you can see that that is not perfectly black. Now, it might look black on your monitor depending on how it's calibrated, but on mine, I can definitely tell that this has some green, a little bit of blue as well in that. So now let's go ahead and create our vignette that's going to live on top of everything. So we'll come up here, go to Layer, New, Solid, and this time we're going to go solid black. So I'm going to drag this all the way down into the black. Go ahead and say okay to that. And to create the vignette, we need to use our ellipse for our mask. So just come up here to where you have the rectangle tool, click and hold down, grab that ellipse, and then we'll just double click the ellipse again to create a vignette really easily. Now, right now, that is adding that black to the inside of my circle. So I'm going to invert that. So now the black's on the outside and the green we see here on the inside. And I'm going to just kind of start playing with these values a little bit. So I'm in those mask properties. I'm going to turn up the feather a little bit. And let's see, what else should we do? That actually looks pretty good. Now, the reason why I'm using this green and not a gray is because whenever you use a gray, a really dark gray for a background color like this with a black vignette, you get some really serious banding in your gradient. Now, I am getting just a little bit of banding. I can kind of see it just right through here, but it's definitely not as bad as if I would have used a gray. And that's just because of the way that those black and white pixels are so contrasty. Using a color like this that contains quite a bit of black and then also a dark color is really going to give you better results. Now we can tweak this vignette later on if we need to. I'm going to go ahead and leave that as it is right now, but let's just go ahead and call these what they are. So I'll right click that black solid, rename it, and we'll call this vignette. There we go. And then this other one, we'll call this background solid. And I'm going to go ahead and we'll grab that mantra logo and put that in between those. And I really like the way that this black vignette kind of covers up just a little bit of the logo and softens it around the top and the bottom. Now, if you feel like this is too much softness, you could go back into that feather and turn it down a little bit so you don't have quite as much feather involved right there. Now you probably want to make sure that that link is staying linked. If it's not, then you're going to be feathering it unevenly all around the edge. So just kind of like this, just where maybe it's a little bit less than what we had earlier. You can also always expand your logo a little bit or even bring it in, or excuse me, not your logo, your mask. maybe just until the edge of that starts to get dark. So I think that that looks really nice. We're going to go ahead and leave that there for now. So in this lesson, we've gone ahead and created a black vignette just to kind of soften the edges of everything. We've dropped in our logo, we have our background color ready, and we've also organized our project panel so all the assets we'll be using throughout the rest of this course are right at our fingertips and ready to go. So stick around, and in our next lesson, we're going to get started with revealing this water part of our logo with a Luma mat.